right, looks like it's 7:07. So we'll call this public hearing of the Terrace Park Planning Commission to order. I don't see that there's any attendees that have signed in, so now we have a smattering of individuals. We have Jerry Hayhow, myself, Mayor, Chairman of the Planning Commission, John Gasky. We have David Moyer, member of the Planning Commission, Chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have Regina Sharp, Councilwoman, member of the Planning Commission. We have Jeff Forbes, solicitor. We have Pax Lindell, council member. We have Judy Lehman, who's council member. We have Jeff LeMay, council member, and then we have council member Inga Britson. So this public hearing is required under Ohio law. This is to have anyone that wants to come and attend or not attend, that's ironic, come and speak if they have any comments to the proposed changes to the zoning code. I think the best way to start this would be, Mr. Moyer, do you want to kind of just give a very brief overview of exactly what it is that Planning Commission has recommended to council for approval? It should be brief because it's not particularly substantive.
Yes, I can. It came to our attention when we have come up with a new process in getting zoning certificates issued and the new building permits issued, that there was an omission in Terrace Park Zoning Code Section 1105.08 under zoning certificate, which sets forth when a zoning certificate is required. And this is the first time I've looked at this section ever. And it was apparent that we need to make a revision to it by capitalizing the word building, because it's a defined term in the code. And we need to add the word structure, capital S, because structure is a defined term in the code. And the reason we need to add the word structure is because there are times when a zoning, either variance or zoning approval is needed when a structure is going in versus a building. An example of a structure is a wall, a fence, a playground, things along that line, things that are person-made, but they're not a building. And so we're recommending that the section in the code, A1, again, the word building be capitalized with the letter B, and add the word structure right before including accessory buildings. And then that will then require anybody who wants to put in a fence, for example, or a wall, they would need to get a zoning certificate by showing the zoning administrator that the plans either comply with the Terrace Park zoning code, or if a variance is needed, going to the zoning board of appeals to get a variance.
So all the changes that are being recommended to council are contained in 1105.08A1.
Yes.
So I will just for the record, I'm looking at proposed ordinance or ordinance 4-120, amending the section, and there's an exhibit A. It's right here. You probably can't see it, but what I can tell you is this: the section that I have, or the copy that I have, does not have building as a capital B, though it has structure included. So we'll just have to make a note that should council wish to adopt this ordinance. I do recall that was what was voted on by the Planning Commission. Just need to make sure that the ordinance matches what was recommended by Planning Commission. I will make a note on here that whoever introduces this, which I believe it will be
Me.
John Gasky, will make sure that that amendment is noted. Sound good? All right.
Yep.
Well, I don't see anybody that has dialed in. There's no attendees. So
Tom, how do the people know to dial in? Is it on the website if they want to join?
Yes, it
Gary?
is. Yes,
Okay.
it is. And the other reason why I'm here is so I can watch the door. And so if anybody shows up, then I would make sure that they had a chance to speak if they wish to.
Gotcha.
okay. Not surprising that nobody has attended. I mean, we've had more substantive proposals that gathered about as much.
So, Mr. Mayor, to summarize, what we're basically adding here is the word structure to this amendment. That's what we're amending, the word structure.
We're adding a capital B to building and in the word structure.
Okay.
In 110508A, number 1. My exhibit A to ordinance 4-1 does not have building as a capitalized term, a defined term. It just has it with a small b. So
And structure is it capitalized on your,
it is not. Good
No.
point.
but that too needs to be
They
capitalized.
will. They will.
We're adding structure with a capital S. Okay.
B, change the small b. The number 1 should read construction or structural alteration of any capital B building, comma, capital S structure, any accessory buildings, but excluding any agricultural building as defined by the Ohio Revised Code.
And previously, structure was not in that. It was not in A1.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have the exhibit A that has all that included on here.
There you
So
go.
that'll be attached with the resolution for your signature if you agree upon it.
Well, if council agrees upon it, then there you go. So we're
Might
going
be tight. It might be
to
tight.
monitor this for the next, wow, time flies, right? 2 minutes, and then we can go into the council public hearing portion of it. And it
Tom,
was-
I will make notes of the planning commission public hearing as I normally do and send them out.
Thanks. I suspect that the council public hearing will be virtually identical to what just occurred.
And this is being recorded.
Great. Jeff, for future reference, Jeff Forbes, is it possible for us to have a joint planning commission and council public hearing?
I think we talked about that concept. My suggestion, even though it seems to be, duplicative, because the code requires a planning commission public hearing
Right.
and the code also requires a council public hearing, it is probably in your best interest to do them separately, just so you can check the boxes that they were all completed properly.
There you go. So it shall be. There's still nobody has signed in to speak
Or come to the door.
or come to the door. So without, if there's no objection, I think we can move into the council public hearing portion of this. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
Hearing no objection. Do we have yet another dazzling graphic for this portion of it?
Nope.
We do not?
I can go back over exactly what we said in the planning commission meeting if you'd like me to.
Yeah, I think just for purposes of process and
Yeah,
let's just.
Do I need to
It's
open up
7:50.
the meeting?
It's 7:15. Yeah, I can open it up here in a second.
Okay.
15, let's give it a minute or two just to see what happens. Everyone can go on mute and
is this going to be voted on if village council, if there's no objections raised in this upcoming meeting? Village council going to vote on this tonight and advance it as an emergency so that it gets approved tonight?
I think
Is
that's
that
the
the
intent.
plan?
It's slated to be voted on tonight and then take effect in 30 days.
Okay. Right.
That's exactly right. That typically you can, because it's a zoning regulation, we don't adopt zoning regulations as an emergency. You can advance it to the final reading, but then you'll have to allow for that 30-day period
Okay.
to take effect.
Just give it a longer soak.
Well, the reason I have my screen vertical is because I became aware right before this meeting that my iPad was about to run out of juice. And to keep it charged, I have to Plus, I don't want it to fall over on me.
We'd have to send the police over there to get. Well, let's, it's 7:17. We're 2 minutes past, so I will call to order the public hearing for the Village of Terrace Park on the proposed zoning resolution, zoning ordinance amendments. For all you that are out there in the viewing public, we have, through the great work of David Moyer, the keeper of the code, has found yet another place where we can just continue to be a little bit better. And so there's a proposal that was brought forth to council, which was then referred to planning commission for very simple amendments. Planning commission, if I do recall correctly, voted unanimously at the planning commission. And then just prior to this, starting at 7 o'clock, actually it was more like 7:04, there was a planning commission public hearing as required by law on these same amendments. And the participants, I think, the attendees, participants were the same as what you see here. And there were no public comment received. I don't see that anybody else has signed up. So you want to just briefly go over what it is that is being proposed?
Yep. When we moved to our new procedures for approving building permits and approving zoning, it came to our attention that there's an omission in the requirement for getting a zoning certificate. And that omission was a zoning certificate needs to be required when a structure is being proposed. And the word structure does not appear in Terrace Park Zoning Code section 1105.08 A1. It does require a zoning certificate when there's a construction or a structural alteration of any building, including accessory buildings, but excluding agricultural buildings as defined by Ohio Revised Code. So an example of a structure is a wall or a fence or a playground, some ornamentation, some artwork, something like that. People could be proposing to put up in their property. And we need to have zoning review of that. And you need to get a zoning certificate. So the Planning Commission recommended the addition of the word structure with a capital S because it's a defined term in the code, and also change the B in building to a capital B because that's a defined term in the code also. So it's a very limited revision that we're proposing here, but it is an important one.
All right, I see that Jay Messner just joined. Jay is a member of the Planning Commission, and I know he was tied up, but he was able to at least join now. Jay, this is the public hearing for the council. The public hearing for the Planning Commission was at about 7:04. Hopefully you had heard that description. You were in attendance at that Planning Commission meeting, and I do recall you had an affirmative vote. So unless you have anything to add, we can kind of sit here and see if there's any public comment that will come from the public.
Thanks. Sorry I missed you.
Always in our heart, Jay.
We had 3 of us here from the Planning Commission, so we did have a quorum, even though we weren't voting on anything. So we were covered. Jay, I mentioned to the others, we had our zoning board of appeals hearing Monday night via Zoom, and it went really well. It was not a controversial variance request. We had consents from both neighbors that were affected by the variance, but we worked our way through it. We thank Jerry and Jason. Jason was from ICRC for setting it up, and it went real smoothly.
Good to hear.
Still no one signed in to attend.
Question, Jerry. Once this meeting is adjourned, do we quote leave the meeting and then do we come back to the meeting at 7:45? Or a little bit before that? Or do we
Yeah,
stay?
I think the reason why, chances are we probably wouldn't have to leave. However, originally there was going to be a switch from a webinar to a Zoom, but now it's going to stay the webinar, but we did advertise as 7:45.
Okay.
The answer is yes, I will sign off.
Is the ICRC person still on the line?
He is.
Okay. I'm just wondering, when I try to see everybody, I only see 8 people. Is there a button I should be pressing so that I can see everybody? Or is it a function of being on an iPad, which I can't get more people on there?
That's exactly it. It's the iPad.
Okay. Well, I learned that my desktop monitor, which I love because it's very small and I don't have a big desk, does not have a camera in it. So I can't do a Zoom meeting from that. So I'll just have to imagine the faces of the other people in this meeting.
You can scroll around and see other people, David.
That's
You
what I'm
only
trying.
get you only get 4 at a time, but you can move it around and get the other people.
Okay. Okay. There we go. Thank you. It's good. Since Katie is not in this public hearing, I'll make a notes on this also, Tom, and send them in.
Sounds great. I suspect it will be similar to the.
It'll have one change at the top,
Yes, at top.
and I won't be the, well, it'll just have my name on there. Well, I think since we're on zoning and building permits, I think the switchover has gone pretty smoothly thus far. I'm not aware of any glitches. Jerry, going smoothly? That's a question.
As far as you know, yeah, it's fine. I'm working with Lois to get, her personality or whatever into it, so it's part of her project. So
She'll be solid. She is solid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question.
she isn't. And there's a couple of them here. Her and Katie have been working on a application so that so it's uniform and you start numbering it the way she wants it to be. And so I expect it will be full go here by the end of the week.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lois comes with great experience.
Have you met with her, David?
We did it by phone because of, so we've met by phone. And it went fine, went well. She's been involved in zoning in places much more complex than Terrace Park. Miami Township, including Eastgate, Blue Ash, and Mason.
Deerfield Township.
Deerfield Township.
I've dealt with her for 20 years.
Yeah. The businesses there are a little more sophisticated than the ones in Terrace Park,
Yeah.
as I'm sure the zoning issues too.
It's always the commercial that brings out the battles. Well, it's 7:28 still. There's no one that has signed in to participate. I don't know if there's any reason for us to continue the public hearing until 7:30. Jeff, is there any requirement that we do so?
There is not. It was advertised, posted properly, and if at this point you're comfortable that there won't be any members of the public attending, you're free to close the public hearing.
Council people, what do you think?
It's fine.
I would agree.
Is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Motion to
Move to-
adjourn the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, so we're closed. So we will click on the very link that we clicked on for the planning commission one, correct? Is it the same one?
To get into the village council
Yes.
meeting.
And that's at 7:45, right?
Yes, Dean?
I think
Yes.
I heard a yes.
and it was advertised for 7:45, so we can't go any earlier. So
Okay. So we can all leave and come back.
see you at 7:45.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, Jerry,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure that I'm in, because I'm only seeing your shadow.
You're only seeing my name, correct?
I'm just seeing like a white circle and then white shoulders under it. There we go.
I love my children.
Oh, man.
All right, well, whoever is directing the graphic here, I think it is now 7:45, which, there we go. It is 7:45. I'd like to welcome everyone. This is history here. This is the first ever Terrace Park virtual council meeting. So, mark this down, and maybe the Terrace Park Historical Society will memorialize this in some way, shape, or form. So let's get this meeting of April 22, 2020 to order, and I have a small flag in my office, and I don't know if everyone else does, but I assume that you do. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic
for which it
for which it stands, one
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A bit awkward, but pretty important thing that we need to do. Mrs. Lyons, would you please call the roll?
You're
Muted.
Yep. Here.
on mute.
Oh,
Bottom left. Bottom left.
Sorry.
Mrs. Lyons, would you please call the roll?
Love to. Jaskey,
I'm here.
Ingebrigtsen,
Here.
Lehman,
Here.
Lemay.
Here.
Lindell,
Here.
Sharp,
Here.
Mayor Tuppy.
He is here. Approval of the meeting minutes from March 11. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Are there any additions, suggestions, corrections, deletions?
No.
If none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All
Second.
in favor, say aye.
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 I will say any opposed, say nay, just because get everybody at the same time. I am looking here to see if there are any residents that would like to address council. ICRC, does it appear that there's anybody here that has signed in?
There are not.
See that.
I can see there's none. And there is nobody at the door, sir.
There we go. So come forward, state your name and your address, and tell us what it is you want us to hear. Moving on, mayor's report me. This is a historic day. It's the first virtual council meeting that's ever occurred in the village of Terrace Park. And it is going off so far without a hitch. Thanks for everyone being accommodating. Thanks, Jerry, for putting this together. And ICRC has always been a good partner of ours, and we look forward to working with them in the coming months. So far, it appears that these are interesting times. These are trying times, and which is not a big surprise. I think the Terrace Park and the residents are weathering this storm extremely well. And again, it's not a surprise because we have a bunch of very intelligent people that exercise common sense. So I will ask that people continue to use common sense. I will ask people to also exercise a bit of, what do we call it? Maybe tolerance, if you will, for things that may have never bugged you before, but perhaps may get a bit under your skin today, because we all have time. Most of us are working from home. And on a typical Wednesday afternoon, there are never this many people out and about running around during the school time. And there's nothing that dogs love more than to bark at people walking in the streets. It appears that the economy so far has not been affected, because I've seen the FedEx and the UPS truck on my street multiple times a day. And that is always a wonderful thing for the dogs to want to bark after. So let's just all be tolerant. Let's just all take a deep breath. People are trying to get through this the best way they can, and not everyone does it the way that everyone else does it. Different is good, but use common sense and a little bit of patience, and we too got to get through this. It is that time of year. This just in, hot off the presses from the office of the mayor, a proclamation. Whereas in 1972, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed, the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal we could use right now. Now, therefore, I, Tom Pepe, Mayor of the Village of Terrace Park, Ohio, do proclaim Friday, April 24, 2020 as Arbor Day in the Village of Terrace Park, Ohio, and I urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to support our village's new urban forestry program. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations in our village, dated this 22nd day of April, 2020. I will use the power of a pen and so proclaim. Please do not plant trees in the village right-of-way. If you want trees within the village right-of-way, contact the village office and they will look and see whether it's proper and appropriate. Jerry, the place looks great. The guys are doing a great job. I think everybody has walked virtually every linear of the village of Terrace Park. We're getting out some of the stumps from problematic trees, giving space for the planting of new trees in the spirit and in the honor of Arbor Day. So good. Kudos to everyone else. And Jerry has done a lot of hard work, and I'd like to thank him for the work that he's done in trying to coordinate these first of a kind, historic virtual meetings of both the Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, et cetera. So Jerry, thank you very much. And Katie, you too. I know you've had your hand in this as well. So patience and tolerance, deep breaths, and love for your neighbor. And we will, using common sense, survive this pandemic. That is the end of my report. How about the Chief Fiscal Officer, Mrs. Lyons?
No report.
Head Lawyer, Jeff Forbes.
You got it, Mayor. Normally I say no report, but just for the village administrator, I wanted to say, as you mentioned, we are able to meet this way under unusual circumstances. I would just point out that's because the General Assembly acted very quickly to adopt House Bill 197 that allows public bodies like this to convene so that you can continue to get your business done during these times. I've worked with the administrator to make sure that we've done everything to abide by these new rules, which we're all learning as we go. But you guys are good to go with this meeting and to keep the business of the village moving.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for your help on this, Jerry. As I noted before, thank you. I will tell everyone in the viewing public, which are wide and many, this is simply temporary. It is extremely convenient to dial in from here, but this is not the way I think government should work. I think government should always work in public places for people to come in. This is temporary. We will do away with this when permitted to by Ohio law and at a time when we will not in any way, shape, or form put anyone's health or safety at risk. So this is purely temporary. But thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Let's go back to the Clerk of Council, Mrs. Lyon.
No report.
EMS Chief, Mr. Maggart.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's on the agenda that I saw earlier today that we're going to be welcoming Juliana Overby, at least for the rest of the summer. Like everything else, she's been studying in Boston, but is here for the duration and is a certified EMT and looks forward to running with us until such time she goes back to her studies. The same breath, our class, unfortunately, like so many other things, is on hiatus right now. Hopefully they will be able to come back on the other side of this and continue that whenever they're able to. We are in pretty good shape, I believe, for our PPE for ourselves, fire department, police department. It seems like a couple of times a week I'm getting notifications that some more items are becoming available. Picked up some from the EOA last week, and I think we're in good shape if things hold pretty much the way they are. We have not had any symptomatic patients since this COVID. So, end of my report.
That's good. Hey, Chief, thank you very much. Fire Chief Steve Dronsfeld.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I'm asking, we had responded a few weeks back to a very tragic accident. Young member of our community lost his life. In that, the family has asked to make sure that everyone is please wearing their seatbelts. And that's all I have to report.
Chief, thank you. I debated whether or not I should that topic up. I'm glad you did, and because it's appropriate because you guys were there. It was a tough time for everybody, and will continue to be a tough time. But from all the reports that I have gotten and conversations that I've had, our village services, fire and all others that participated, EMS, were top-notch professional, and that the training taught them to do. So I've heard nothing but to the extent that you can have positive something that comes out of this as it relates to how we operate. The reports have been great, and I want to say thank you. It was a difficult run for a lot of people, and I noticed that there were some young, I can quote unquote young, call it more like rookie or not seasoned veterans on that run, and that's got to be tough at any point in your career. I can only imagine how that went with them, and I know that you have been following up with them just to make sure that they're in good stead. So appreciate it, Chief, both chiefs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About Police Chief, Village Administrator, Jerry Hayhow.
Thanks, Your Honor. I've sent our application into FEMA and have been tracking all expenses related to the COVID-19, such as personnel, overtime, medical, and sanitation expenses. If they reach the threshold, I expect the village will be reimbursed for all or partial of the amount spent. I've worked with, or spoke to Chief Maggard, and I believe their association has purchased some of the things for him. However, I did ask whatever he gets, either department to let me know so that I can keep that list up to date. I do want to say that I'm actually excited to report that when the call went out for volunteers to assist any residents that are unable to leave their house, we had about 8 people respond almost immediately. I mean, Katie's email was just bam, bam, bam. And I think we're up to around 40 at this point. So hopefully we don't need them, but they're there, and it shows the Terrace Park spirit for sure. The foundation has been poured and the electric has been roughed in for the new clock in front of the village green. The clock is currently being stored in the police garage, and we're waiting for the Vernon Company to schedule an installation date. They said they're working, a couple days a week, so they couldn't give me any time frame, but we are ready to go when that event occurs. I have a couple other street things, and I think Councilman Lindell will take it from there, and that's the end of my report.
Great. With respect to the clock, I know that it has to be installed, of course. I'm excited about the location of it. I think it's fitting for the community. I suspect it will probably have some type of dedication ceremony or some type of acknowledgement, because a lot of hard work and people's donations went into that. And so watch the ticker tape to see when that date is going to be set. Probably sometime in the future when everything calms down and safe and it's established, and so we can get that on the books at the right time. So moving on, let's see, who else do we have? How about speaking of buildings and grounds, Regina Sharp?
You want to do John Gasky, or are you skipping him?
How about, well, ladies first in my household, of course, but we'll go to John Gasky. We'll go to John Gasky. I didn't see it. I'm having a hard time reading it.
Well, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So earlier this evening, a planning commission public hearing was held to discuss a zoning text amendment to section 1105.08 of the zoning code. Essentially, there was a text omission, the requirement for obtaining a zoning certificate. And specifically what was omitted was the word structure. So what is the word structure? That's an example of a wall, a fence, a playground equipment, a piece of art, etc. So currently the text only references the word building. So in essence, anybody wanting to do a wall or a fence would need to get a zoning certificate for the construction or alteration of the word of a structure. So essentially, we're making a couple of changes. And to the zoning code, the word structure in A1 of the zoning code, and also we're capitalizing the word B as in building. So any questions on that from the group? And Mr. Moyer, was I able to summarize that correctly? Great. So I'd like to introduce and advance the third reading, ordinance 4-1, 2020, amending section to 1105.08 of the zoning code for the village of Terrace Park.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. Seconded by Lindell. Please call the roll.
Is that what you'd like?
Can't hear.
Would you like, please call the roll. I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebretson,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp,
Aye.
Mayor Tuppy.
If I voted, I would certainly vote aye.
Very good. With that being said, I would like to move to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
Seconded
Gasky,
by Lehman. Right.
Gasky, aye.
Ingebretson,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
Brilliant. I have affixed my signature there too, and we'll deliver it to the clerk tomorrow.
Good job, Dave and John.
Thank you to the Planning Commission for their hard work.
Well, this to the people out there viewing, you may think that this is kind of form over substance, but I can tell you that I won a case that involved over the definition of a word. It was not capitalized, and that is it was a defined term, so therefore they did not intend it to be. It's crazy, but so this stuff is important, whether it's capitalized or not, can have a huge legal impact. So we're not wasting people's time. We're trying to make sure that this thing is solid and protects not only the village, but most importantly, protects everyone's property and property values. So, or you've outdone yourself yet again. John, are you completed here?
I have no other report, Mr. Mayor.
There we go. Now let's go to Mrs. Sharp.
Okay. The only thing I want to do is thank Jerry and the crew for all the work they've done on getting the setup for the clock, and Lauren for getting it to where it is. So I just took it over recently, so it'll be nice when it's all done. Otherwise, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you very much. Finance, Jeff Lemay.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two resolutions and one discussion item that Pax and I will share here in just a minute. The first resolution 4-1, this is the fourth step in a levy renewal. We declared the need, we submitted to the auditor, they certified the rates. This resolution puts it on the ballot for this fall. It's about $330,000 of revenue for Terrace Park. It represents about 15% of our total budget. This is one of the three operating levies we put on the ballot. We'll have another one again next year, which is a bigger one, the 5.58 mil levy. Key message, it does not increase your taxes. Sometime this fall, August, September, October, I'll ask help from council members and we'll begin the education and campaign effort to create public awareness and support for it. So unless there's any questions, I'm going to read resolution declaring the necessity to proceed with renewal tax levy increase in excess of the 10 mil limitation, the 2.8 mil renewal.
Second.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebretson,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lehman, sorry,
Sorry. Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
I'd like to move to adopt the resolution as an emergency.
I'll second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebretson,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
Great. Thank you on that one. Resolution 4-2. I needed to do a little homework on this one. I've not seen it before.
I had to do a little homework myself because I don't recall seeing this one either.
Yeah, I think I figured it out. I'll give you some context and background here. we have what's called a local government fund. It's about $30,000. The reason why I bring that up and provide the context, we're going to talk about it as part of our problem statement in just a minute. But anyway, this is money that is the village receives from the state of Ohio. The research I've done on this resolution is once every 8 years, we need to renew and approve the method by which the local government fund is apportioned. And simply put, there's a chunk of money that goes to Hamilton County. There's a chunk of money goes to the city of Cincinnati. And then after that, remaining funds are apportioned roughly a third to villages, townships, cities based upon population, a third based on their assessed tax value, and a third based upon the lanes or miles. And as a result, we get about $30,000 a year. The other context is that Jerry knows this, back in 2013, this revenue was sizably larger. And as part of the 2008, 2009 Ohio budget cuts, they reduced these across all villages. And that necessitated a levy we put on the ballot in 2013. So anyway, that's the research homework. Mayor, did you come up with anything different or in addition?
No,
Okay.
no, I just had not seen it.
We won't see it again for another 8 years, apparently.
Some of you will.
Okay. All right. So resolution 4-2, resolution authorizing the adoption of an alternative method for apportioning the local government fund and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
I move to adopt the resolution as an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
Great. Great. Good. Yeah, I have one issue I'd like to talk, and I want to thank Jerry for flagging this. Pax and I can collaborate on it. We have some budget risk this year from an income standpoint. Jerry was made aware by Hamilton County, Dusty Roads, that there's a potential and a likelihood that our local government fund will be cut by 20%. In part or large part driven by the coronavirus impact on the state of Ohio revenue. That represents about a $6,000 hit to our overall budget. The other impacts that Jerry and I brainstormed, there's certainly less driving taking place. You'll see this in the price of fuel, but that impacts the amount of revenue we get from the gas tax. Smaller things like the BMV is closed. So people aren't renewing their licenses. We get a portion of that as well. Fewer fines, fewer expired tags. There may be building permits that are decreased, et cetera. So we're estimating there will be about a 40,000, upwards of 50,000 potential shortfall in our Terrace Park revenue or budget this year. As Jerry and I talked, and Pax and I had a brief email exchange, one of the things we want to put on the table is evaluating the necessity of completing all of our road repairs as planned this year. So 4 potential options. One is we would proceed as planned, do everything that's in the plan, but dip into our savings. The other would be do something less than that, half the plan or something. The other would be to wait, do nothing, see how the revenue plays out. But Pax, if you want to go ahead, I think the idea is to have you and work closely with Jerry and come up with a plan.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry and I briefly talked either yesterday or today, I think maybe both days, about it. We are introducing we have 2 items on the list tonight, which will be outside of that, but we've discussed it and we'll take a look at it. And we're all on the same page about just doing what is within our budget this year. We do kind of a manual or a annual plan every year where we're repairing certain parts of sidewalks and streets. And so there's a couple of places where we're going to probably skip the black mat maybe this year, and we're going to just still repair kind of the under the underside of the street, and we'll save the black mat maybe for next year when the budget's there, and we can do more black mat on the streets. But we appreciate you flagging this, and we're certainly in a good place, I think. So we're going to repair. We will kind of pick and choose, spots of streets that are a little bit more in need of repair, and skip black mats. So it's really kind of the aesthetic. The black mat's important, but where it's cracking and things like that, we'll go in and replace that part of the street. But sometimes the aesthetic portion of the black mat, we're going to skip probably some of that this year. Jerry, you want to add anything to that? You can.
No, that's you hit it on the head. I mean, it's gone from 50 to 30. So I have to go back over the streets and get the worst of the worst. And in the black sealer, the black mat is a sealer, so it's actually protecting our investment. The streets are an investment. So whatever we don't get done this year, I've talked to Strasser, and they know we're not the only community that's going to be in this situation. So I think they're expecting less from the municipalities anyway. So.
Yeah. So Paxton, I know I had a conversation with Jerry initially when this came in from the auditor, sort of flagging this. I know I spoke with Jeff. My tendency is to be fiscally conservative. It is to circle the wagons. Cash on hand is king. But as noted earlier, after having walked virtually every linear foot of the village, there are things we just need to do. So I think better minds prevailed, and we're going to do what we have to do, but we're not going to dip into the savings account to get those things done. But we're not going to ruin our investment and not do the maintenance that's required in the places that are needed. So great compromise. I was kind of the other position, but Mr. LeMay and Mr. Lindell and Jerry are pretty persuasive people, and so I think that's the right thing. Is there? We're sort of meshing public works and finance, but they go together perfectly. Are there any other thoughts from anyone else? Regina, Judy, Lauren, John?
So we're forecasting the shortfall based on a certain period of time. Like, is there a short-term and a longer-term issue we may have? Or is this kind of the worst of?
There, as Jerry and I talked, we think there's a potential here of this revenue shortfall being 2 to 3 months. It depends on what you believe is the outcome. Is it a V-shaped recovery or U-shaped or something like that? And that's why I think it's important to be conservative. Do roughly half the plan or what makes the most sense, because it could be September, October, that we're going to continue to see less driving, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that was the assumption, 2 to 3 months, but it may last longer than that.
I think that all makes sense to me.
You got to feel for some municipalities whose budget is heavily dependent on income and earnings tax. Those certainly are going to take a hit. We're fortunate that we don't have those, and we don't budget around those at all because, anyway, off my soapbox on no income tax, which I think makes us unique and great.
Yep.
And work well within our budget and within our means. So,
Okay, good. That was the last discussion topic, Mayor. Thank you.
great. Rules and law, Mrs. Lehman.
I have no report, thank you.
Great, thank you much. Public Works, Mr. Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we just discussed, we do have a couple of items on the list this evening. They're for sidewalk and asphalt paving. So based on the last discussion, if anybody has any questions, are there any questions out there, I guess? This is kind of our standard routine. Jerry goes around and throughout the year we mark sidewalks and streets, and we put a plan together to replace those. And this is just part of that plan within the budget cuts that we just spoke about. So if there's nothing else there, I'd like to introduce in advance to the third reading, Resolution 4-3, authorizing and directing the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Hendy for the 2020 sidewalk project at a cost not to exceed $20,000 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
And as we do normally with these, we'd like to treat these as an emergency, just to get ourselves onto the schedule so we can get we can get these things scheduled for the summer. So I move to adopt this resolution as an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
So that resolution is passed.
Yep, yeah, it's signed.
So we do have a second one here as well. So I'd like to introduce and advance to the third reading, Resolution 4-4, authorizing and directing the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Performance Asphalt Paving, Inc. for the purpose of asphalt repair project at a cost not to exceed $4,249 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
And I move to adopt the resolution as an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
That's the end of my report.
That one is signed too. Thank you very much for your hard work in conjunction with keeping us fiscally sound and fiscally conservative. And Jerry, as always, thank you. All right, moving on. We're almost there. How about public safety, Lauren, Mrs. Ingebrigtsen?
Thank you, Mayor. As our EMS chief introduced earlier in this meeting, we are appointing a new member of our emergency medical services this evening. So I would like to introduce and advance to the third reading, Resolution 4-5, consent of council to the appointment by the mayor of Juliana Overby to the Volunteer Emergency Medical Services Department of the Village of Terrace Park.
Second.
Lots of seconds.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
I move to adopt the resolution as an emergency.
Second.
Gasky,
Aye.
Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Lehman,
Aye.
Lemay,
Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Sharp.
Aye.
That's great. I did tell, I think I told Chief Maggard, or who, I forget who it is, since I'm working from home, there's, if she's up at the village, I can easily swing up there and swear her in and get her in the group. So thank you very much to Juliana Overby for her service.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to everybody. Also, she is equipped with uniform and pager and ready to go.
Perfect.
Great. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Any continued business? Any new? business? Well, this historic meeting must come to an end at some point. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. This one off well. Jerry, so far, nobody's logged on or knocked on the door.
No,
You're
there's no
muted.
attendees.
Yeah,
Went well. Thank you.
it did do
Prep
well.
work.
So
Yeah.
that's great.
They did.
Okay, well,
Okay.
stay safe, everybody.